Welcome to another episode of Lifelong Learner. This is the Out of Class edition with Ben, Janesh, and Matt. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Lifelong Learner. Welcome, Matt. Welcome, Ben. How we doing?
Mate, don't welcome me. I'm welcoming you. You're at my house today.
I know. We're actually sitting side by side. It doesn't look like it, but...
Yeah. So welcome, Matt.
Welcome, Matt.
Thanks for having me, lads.
Welcome, Matt.
Welcome. How are we doing, fellas?
Really good. Matty, now you're back in Lombok.
I'm back in Lombok. I've been here a week, but it feels like I've been here a day.
Yep.
I was sick for 4 days straight. I ate the wrong bit of street food. Oh, no. And it literally left me buckled over in bed for 4 days. It was horrible.
So you're not immune yet?
Not immune.
Now, if the locals ate that, do they get crook?
No, the locals did eat that. I went for a quick feed with Bobby, and we just stopped off at this little street. We'll run. Try saying that. That's a hard word. And had some beef rang-dang thing. And I was looking at it like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And Bobby's like, come on, just going at it. And yeah, the next day.
So you got crook and Bobby didn't?
Yeah, Bobby, no, never gets sick. The only time he gets stomach-related things is if he does too much spicy. That sometimes catches him out. But usually it's like most vulnerable in the month after coming back, like the go back and then come back quickly. So vulnerable. So my stomach just got used to Melbourne food, and then I've come back.
And the stomach not adjusting?
Oh,
I was listening to a podcast just recently about a guy being interviewed, Tim Sinclair, who's a big gut microbiome thing, and of course it's really catchy at the moment, but he was just saying that your gut microbiome can evolve in a week. You know, if you change your diet in a week, the microbiome will evolve. So he went over with the Hatsu tribe, you know, this kind of famous tribe, the last on the planet, they say, surviving hunter-gatherer tribe in Africa. And he went and spent a couple of weeks with them. And he took a microbiome sample before he left, took another microbiome sample on the day that he got back, and dramatic change in his microbiome in improvement sense. But then took another microbiome test 2 weeks later back on his regular diet, and it had gone back again to the way it was. So it just shows you how quickly we can shift our microbiome. And of course, he talks about the dramatic improvement in health when we eat high fibre diet, you know, big variety of food. So we're constantly getting it's like, you know, anything, if we keep evolving and changing, you know, our workouts, for example, our muscles keep developing. But if we do the same workout each time, the muscles stop evolving. And so he's saying that we've got to constantly change our diet. And so our microbiome keep going, what the hell's this one? What's the hell's this? You know, we need to keep evolving and getting stronger and better and better.
So he's saying it's good to shock the system. I know, I was going to look side by side. So he's saying it's good to shock the system with your microbiome.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But obviously not too shocking.
I never would have guessed it was that quick. That's phenomenal. And that's given me more motivation. I'll be less timid. Well, still a little timid.
I remember in Bali, though, talking to the locals about that, and they said even they are wary of where they eat. You know, like they just don't eat off any old street stall. But obviously Bobby didn't get sick, so it's more your microbiome than necessarily the vendor is dodgy.
I think it could have been a little bit of both. I think that they just are more resilient to, you know, I guess they're used to the bacteria as well, right? His microbiome's probably quite used to it, and mine's not. And he has quite a lot of that bacteria, and I don't have any of it.
Yeah.
Something like that. But yeah, it was horrible. But, you know, I don't know about you guys, but when I get really sick, there's always this period of gratitude that comes in, and it's not, you know, like people do their gratitude journal, they sit there and they think about things to be grateful for. This is like dying-induced gratitude. It's like, I'd give anything to be healthy again. I'd never complain. oh my God, how good was it when I could just wake up and feel good? I'm such an asshole. Why do I take things for granted? Like just 4 days of that. And so I actually came out. Yeah, but once I physically felt good, I had a pretty good mindset. I was just grateful for anything other than bed.
So are you good now? Or gut's good now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think 90% now. It took a while. But my problem is that I'll come back, like probably 3 days ago I was 70%, and I've done this before. You get so sick of not doing anything that you do it all, and then you end up back in hospital or back in bed.
Yeah.
So I've been really conscious. I just had my first 2 days at the gym and was at like, just doing 60, 70%. And today's the first day where I've got the routine back. I'm feeling physically good. Sun's just rising.
30 degrees, sun shining, a bit like Melbourne.
Mate, the sun is shining. Look out your window here, Ben, and sun's shining. It's like a balmy 12 degrees this morning. It was, what's it, last week? Last week of May, it was like 4 or 5 degrees in the morning. So
You had a good weekend though. Kat was saying that it was the weekend. Oh, maybe it's different in Gippsland.
No, there was good weather.
it was sunny. Yeah.
Mate, speaking of gym, one of the things that I noticed, I don't know whether you've only had a week off, but I had 3 weeks off with this dodgy eye. I didn't go to the gym, and when I went back, like 20% loss of strength. Like I went back well, but just 20% loss of strength. Like it's slippery slope. When you get a bit
so
older.
brutal.
Yeah. Do you notice that even at your young age of 30s?
But for sure, I noticed how quick I lose strength. Size seems to take a bit longer, but yeah, I think strength can go, particularly after being sick like that. I think that's, as we know, gut's so important. That seems to have a big effect on strength. Yeah, quick loss of strength. It's brutal. It takes you months to build it and weeks to lose it.
If you don't use it, you lose it, right? Like flexibility and mobility. If you stop doing it. But
How are you going, G? You were getting back into flexibility and starting to get some stretching stuff going and getting back into running. Is that happening?
That's a great question. The mobility stuff is. The running, no.
No, he says.
No.
Twice, 3
Yeah.
times. No.
We appreciate honesty here.
There is movement. There's definitely movement. So, because I'm coaching Cyrus' soccer team, I'm not a stagnant, like I'm just going to stand there at the sideline, like type of coach. I'm like, I'll be running with the players during training. So, the running's probably once, maybe twice a week, like designated intentional run. However, the mobility is like probably 4 or 5 days a week. Noticing things are easier. Like less, like I don't have a lot of like aching and croaking of pain and going, oh, that's stiff or whatever. It's just can move freer for the amount of mobility I did compared to if I did the same amount of running. It wouldn't necessarily mean I'm moving freer overall. So yeah, which is interesting actually. So usually running's my go-to, but yeah, my head's like if I get this also sorted and habitual, then running will be easier and I can run longer. Mate, from your book, Born to Run Too.
Oh yeah, yep.
Been going, all right, what's the flat, they call them flat tyres. How do you fix your flat tyres? Looking at all your flat tyres first before you increase mileage and getting them sorted, and they're like, how do you get them all aligned and then go? So yeah, which is good actually. I'm enjoying. I noticed the differences after the first 10 days. I noticed. Yeah.
What's your flat tire, Matty?
My flat tire at the moment, which is, how did you know? Achilles. Everything, my body feels great. Strength's coming back, but I've had this Achilles, like I guess it's tendonitis or something. Like just this pain. If you pinch it, excruciating. So I massage it every day. I've been stretching, doing a lot of calf stretching, some mobility stuff, balancing on one foot. It just won't go away. I destroyed this ankle a year and a half ago. Like I was on crutches and for 3 weeks and it's just moved. So I fix one thing and then it moves to somewhere else. And I think my left foot collapses, so it's lost its arch, and because it's lost its arch, that somehow the Achilles is compensating, and it's just, it's not. It's just uncomfortable. It's just a tight feeling and an awareness that probably shouldn't go 110% on something that's a little bit sore. So that's my one niggling thing. Any idea? Have you guys ever had this? Some kind of tendonitis?
Mate, I fell out of a palm tree and fractured my foot into 700 pieces. So
He's got some experience.
I got some experience around that. The good news is you'll learn to adapt to it and put up with the pain for the next 30 years. Yeah.
It's literally, I keep feeling it and it's a little bit swollen, but I'm like, my mind goes, that's a big tendon.
Mate, I heard it's Achilles is your old man injury, mate. Old man injury when you're getting on. Yeah.
But when I did my ankle, this is the kind of support you get from your friends, right? The boys were like, "Oh, ankle, game over, mate. You can't return it. You can't come back from an ankle at your age." That was one of my mates. Another one was like, "Oh, once you do that, knees and ankles, game over. If you were 20, you'd be all right." I'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll be there.
Yeah.
Watch this space, listeners. Watch this space.
I'll move through this.
Benny,
I know how pain works.
Benny, I had a question for you. So, listeners, I walk into Ben's house and there's some tape down in his kitchen. Here I am thinking that he was doing some painting or some renos, redoing the floor. Mate, tell us, what is this tape on your floor? Like just blue masking tape on your floor.
Are you doing pop-up spin just for surfing?
Yeah, mate, he's just going side to side. His little line in the kitchen.
So we've got the new puppy, right? Yeah,
it's not very new anymore.
Well, no, it's 4 weeks old for us. 12 weeks going on.
Still have it. It hasn't gone back.
He's getting a big boy. He's now such a big boy that when he sits in the front seat of my car, he triggers the no seatbelt warning. And he's probably getting close to maybe 16, 17 kilos now. So he's getting to be a big boy. Anyway, he's such a good boy. He's a really good boy. So we don't really have any trouble, but we figured we need to do some puppy training and prepare him. So we decided to get a puppy trainer or a dog trainer, dog trainer is probably the word. Yeah, dog trainer is a word. To come out. It was $500, which is not cheap, right? And the guy comes out for a couple of hours and just comes to your home, spends a couple of hours with you. So this guy rocks up, really nice bloke, rocks up, sits down at the dining table, and we're just kind of having a chat, and we're chatting about Bromley and what's he up to and bits and pieces. And this guy's used to going into people's houses, and he told us a couple of stories. He said 2 days ago I went to a house and I walked into the living room and it was like a snowstorm had just happened. The dog had been ripping the stuffing out of the couches.
Oh,
right? He said there was just white everywhere. He said this morning I've just come for a house where one of the sons had bought a rescue puppy and had taken it home to his mum's and said, "Mum, can you look after this for the weekend because I'm going away?" Left the dog with Mum. Mum's entire plaster wall in her kitchen has been ripped out. The skirting board has been torn off. He said, "That's what I'm normally dealing with." Yeah. He said, "So your dog sounds like, it's fine."
It's
we
pleasant.
said, "Yeah, it is great. We just want to make sure we,
Good habits.
continue the journey." Because we have a motto around our children that we don't raise children, we raise adults. And he came with exactly that philosophy, mate. You're not raising a puppy, you're raising a dog. And you're going to raise a big dog. It's going to be 40 to 50 kilos. You don't want a dog with bad habits at 50 kilos. So anyway, so we're chatting about this, and Bromley's wandering around. He said, no, so like, some simple things, like put a lead on him and cut the end off the lead with a loop so the loop can't get caught on anything. But you've always got a lead you can grab when he's wandering around the house if he's not doing the right thing. And right on cue, Bromley couldn't have done it any better, right? Bromley's wandered up and he's put his hand down to give Bromley a pat, and Bromley's doing a lot of mouthing at the moment. You know how they grab your hand and sort of chew on your hand? Well, this guy, again, you're not raising a puppy, you're raising a dog. This chewing behaviour you don't want when he's 40 kilos, and you actually don't want when he's 17 kilos and he's got sharp teeth. And so he just picks up the lead, and I'll cover the mic. He goes, like really, like in your face loud, and jerks the lead on the dog's neck. And Bromley goes, what the fuck just happened then? And he sits down and he's looking up like he's just been slapped across the face. He's like stunned. You go, fucking hell. And he's pausing for a bit. Then he goes, nah, it was nothing. And he goes back, and then he goes to pat him again, and Bromley goes in with the mouth. The guy goes, pulls the lead, and Bromley's like a second slap. And he said, this whole treating your dog every time it does something good, this positive reinforcement, he said there's nothing wrong with being encouraging to your dog and giving it love. But if you only do that, the dog is not going to learn. You need negative reinforcement. Yeah. The dog needs to know when it's doing the wrong thing. Yeah. Next minute, Bromley's kind of back again, and he was doing something. He wasn't mouthing this time though. So the guy reaches into his bag and he grabs out a little plastic bottle, and he's put some beads and bits and pieces in it. So it's a shaker, but not many beads. So it's like 8 beads, and when you shake that plastic bottle, it makes a ruckus. And so Bromley's doing something, he grabs the bottle, goes, and he shakes this bottle, and it's like thunderstorms going off inside the house. Bromley bolts away. And he said he's not scared of me, he's just scared of this bottle and the noise that's going on. And again, the behaviour stopped. So in answer to your question, Janesh, he said, do you want the dog in the kitchen under your feet? We go, well, probably not. I mean, he's not, it's a bit annoying when he's a puppy because we can step on his toes, but when he's a big 40-kilo dog, you're carrying a heavy pot. He said, so come over. So he gets in his bag, bit of blue tape, puts a bit of blue tape on the ground. He said, everyone come into the kitchen, because we had the whole fam. Everyone stands in the kitchen. Bromley goes, what are you all doing in there? And he wanders into the kitchen, crosses over, steps just over the blue line. The guy's got his plastic shaker bottle, shakes the bottle. Bromley bolts back on the other side of the line again. And then of course there's another line on the other side of the kitchen. So Bromley goes, not that way. I'll go around the other way.
Gestapo at the border.
Yeah.
With his
goes on the other side, bottle shaking. Bromley doesn't cross the line anymore. Now, he left after just 2 hours of hanging out with us. Just tiny little moments like that of training, and the dog is completely changed. It does not mouth us anymore. It doesn't bite anymore. Gone. Like that.
Wow.
It's gone. It's unbelievable. Totally gone. We've got the
You
dog.
need that shaker.
Well, he said, like often the dog, does the dog ever want to come in and jump up on the glass, your glass door and scratch away to kind of come in? Oh, we said, yeah, occasionally. It doesn't do it much. He said, well, I had this dog and it was literally tearing the door apart until the owner let him in, and the dog was controlling the in and out behaviour. He said, so I was there at the owner's the other day, and the dog's scratching on the door. So I said, you got a jug? She said, yeah. Filled it up with water. Filled it up with water. As the dog's scratching, opens the door, straight in the dog's face. Dog runs off, covered in water, and it's like, like a slap in the face again. Dog comes back, starts to scratch on the door. He just gets the jug and puts the jug down near the door. Dog instantly stops scratching. and he said, just, if the dog starts, you don't have to even splash him anymore. You just get the jug out and put the jug on the... He said, I went to a house and the dog had chewed up, you could see the dog had chewed up some of the couch, and in the middle of the couch is a coffee table, and sitting on the coffee table is a giant leaf blower. And I said to the guy, what's going on with the leaf blower? He said, we find that when we start the leaf blower up and blow the leaf blower in the dog's face, it stops biting the couch.
That's a bit intense.
So now we've got this giant leaf blower in the living room, and every time the dog goes to do something naughty, we just go up and pick up the leaf blower, and the dog instantly stops. So the little jug's a better option, I reckon.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's amazing that it seems like one really kind of, I guess in our field, Janesh, we call it like a break state, right?
Yes.
Like something that breaks the habit, and you only need one, and then just trust that that's enough. Because I think you see people with dogs and humans, and they give too much information, and it's slightly different every time. And when I think about it, just after your explanation, it makes so much sense that you're confusing the hell out of the dog, because maybe you yell at it with your hand up, and then next time you yell at it with your hand down, and then you don't yell the same word, you yell a little bit different. It's just confused. So it just goes back to the same behavior, and you get more and more irate and more frustrated, and it's not clear, simple instructions. Whereas a jug of water to the face, it's pretty clear.
It's clear. And he said you don't want to associate the negative feelings of the dog to you. So always use something that's not you to discipline the dog. It's simple things like he said, when you call your dog and you're annoyed at him and he's not behaving, don't use his name in anger. So don't go, Bromley, come here, you little bugger, come here. Don't do that, ever. Don't ever use the dog's name and have anger at the same time. Only ever use the dog's name in good moments when the dog's doing the right thing.
That makes so much sense.
Do you think just that simple example, and again, I'm trying to think of a way not to compare like dogs, puppies to humans and children and students. But if we did, for this example, why is it? He's saying, look, don't always reinforce positive, right? They've got to know when they're doing things wrong. When do you think we stopped doing that in culture, in society, where there's this participation award, this 100% inclusion is mandatory? It's mandated by, say, departments of education that they need to be 100% inclusive. And like the reality is the world doesn't work that way. The world will tell you quick, smart if you're doing something wrong in your job, in the law, in anything, like sometimes in a relationship, but why, say example, to say the education system and some parenting styles, that doesn't happen. And when did it stop? Because it hasn't been like that always.
I don't know the answer to that exactly, but I do know this. There's always extremes. There's always a parent that has been physically abusive to their child, right? They've taken the slap on the bum with a newspaper when the kid stepped out of line to another level, right? And inappropriate. And there's probably some listeners that are going, a slap on the arse with a newspaper is inappropriate. Well, maybe, I don't know. But, what we're saying is, like, there's good negative reinforcement, I think, and there's inappropriate negative reinforcement. And what we've done is we've gone, okay, that extreme is no good, physically abusing a child no good, therefore you just can't physically discipline your child at all, whether it be physical discipline or verbal discipline or raising your voice, it's been nipped in the bud. It's like we see it across a whole range of different things. And I think that's what's happened. And now it's all just got to be rainbow and sunshine. So, but as you said, Janesh, that's not how the world operates. And he said exactly that. He said the mum, every time that the dog does something right, doesn't go over and lick it and say, oh, beautiful little boy, beautiful little boy. It's kind of this neutral, and then there's discipline. He said, there's a point where the dog's teeth come in and the dog goes up to attach to the mum's nipple, and those little sharp teeth, the mum lets that pup know, quick smart, instant negative reinforcement that, hey, the nipple is out of bounds. It doesn't wait to positively reinforce the dog when it's not on the nipple. Yeah.
You see that in nature all the time with animals. It's so true that there's a quick, reminder, or a dog will grab another dog by the scruff of the neck and pick it up and put it back down, or it's
done. However, it's done still with connection, right? With connection and rapport. So you see potential, and I'll use teachers as an example. Teachers would say behavioural and engagement problems in their class, and then the same student that is a menace in someone else's class is absolutely amazing, right? And I put it down to the teacher, and one's got a higher skill set than the other and can connect and still go, hey, look, these are not a walkover, but these are the rules of my classroom, but I'm going to connect with you when I pull you into line. If there is no connection, then there's going to be this tit for tat and this power struggle, especially with students, right? Students, kids, adults. But if there's a rapport and there's a connection, it's coming out of a space of love, but there is this background, it's like making a withdrawal without having any deposits, right? So this it makes a difference. So when an animal does it to their young, there's connection there. There's still that nurturing stuff happening, say 95% of the time, and then that 5%, hey, look, this is not acceptable.
But is it, Janice, it's not acceptable, and I love you.
Yes.
It's always I love you. In that instant that parent animal is disciplining its young, in that exact same instant, if there was a threat to the young from an external...
100%.
The mum's right on it, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing for us with our kids, that it's done with love. He said, interestingly, you want to teach the dog to respect you. It needs to respect you. And he said, really interesting, the dog will always attempt to be the most dominant in the house. That's the nature of animals. They want to be the most dominant. Like you were saying with the kids in the class, right? They want to dominate the class. And he said, if you start allowing it to think it's at the same level as you, you're in big trouble. He said, so one of the things the dog will do, it'll always try and raise itself, physically raise itself. And so it'll jump on the couch to get to the same level. And you might even invite the dog on the couch, right? And then it goes, the same level as him. He said, I even see dogs not just get on the couch to give the parent a cuddle or the owners a cuddle, but they get onto the top of the headpiece of the couch. So now they're higher than the owner. He said, that's lethal. He said, the dog now thinks it is the dominant one in the house. And that's exactly what you're saying with kids in the class. They try it on and they try it on and try it on, and eventually they go, you know what? I'm actually the dominant one in the class here.
So why does it, say, take, just going on with dogs and, say, students, right? Says it allows this, and then, say, the owners of, say, the dog change now their behaviour, right? The teacher or the school now changes their behaviour. The company changes their behaviour because the staff can get away with it. So there's we can't do this experience because 40 out of the 400 people in our year level are risky. So we can't do that. No, we just can't. It is too risky. We're different. Or the owner of the dog goes, I can't leave. I can't leave for a weekend. I need to take this dog for a walk at night times and mornings because it doesn't get along with other dogs. I can't take this dog for a coffee because it's going to pull, it's going to be needy. Why is it that, and it's happening, right? So happening with dog owners, happening with schools all around the country, definitely in Victoria. Why is that? And why don't they see that is the question. Like when I go, why don't they see that they're pandering, so to speak, to this behaviour, and they're like, no, it's just because we have to do it that way. We can't do it any other way. This year level is like this. I'm like, I don't think you can do. Why is that?
Why do you think it is?
I think it's fucking annoying and lazy. I
You think it's lazy?
Mate, I think it's yes, I do. I think it's because it's the cost of it's an easy path of least resistance. Yeah, okay. No, not necessarily lazy, but it's path of least resistance. And going, you know what? Which is easier to correct this and go, you know what? Let's give them the chance and let's try this, or let's maybe put them in a box and go, or let's take the easy route and of less confrontation, less chance of confrontation, right? It may not lead to confrontation at all. It's like this, it's like what we talked about last episode, fear-based thinking, right? They've gone into this fear-based thinking but for them, it's super logical, right? For the dog owner, it's like, it's just the way it is. I'm like, why do you mean your skirting boards are all chewed up? Like, that's not the way it's supposed to be. Oh, no, it is. It is. He always does that. Yeah, I think it's path of least resistance. It annoys me when it affects... It annoys me... Yeah, it annoys me because it affects the dog's journey or enjoyment. It affects the students, and they don't know it's affecting them. Like, it's because this person's choosing the path of least resistance and the comfortable path. They're choosing it's at the cost of the cost of a person that they think they're protecting.
Yeah, but it's happening across all sorts of disciplines. You know, workplaces, and again, there's workplace bullying and bosses that are out of control, and you know, there's that extreme, and then there's, hey, you know, like, not all workplaces need to be a democracy. Do you know? Like, not everything needs to be voted on. Sometimes I think, you know, there's an owner who takes responsibility, who pays the rent, who is responsible for wages, responsible for the taxes, responsible. Everything doesn't have to be a democracy. You know, sometimes I think, you know, there's a level of dictatorship. It's like, hey, here's the rules. Here's how we're going to roll if you're going to work here. Here's how you're going to roll if you're going to live in this house. The amount of times I've said that to the kids. When you got your own home, you can do what you like. But when you're under my roof, you'll obey my rules. I often say to my kids, this is not a democracy. This house is a dictatorship, right? We don't vote on everything. Not everything's a vote. Not everything's a vote. Oh, we got you know, lamb for dinner. I don't want lamb. I want... Mate, this is not we're not voting what's for dinner, right?
Yeah.
I think that there's like, it's changed. It's seriously changed, and I think, you know, I'm not that old, listeners, but my dad was an older dad. He was 40 when he had me, and so I grew up with that old school. You know, my dad was born in 1912 or something like that. Yeah, and so 1927 would be right, something like that. Yeah, 1927, and so it's that older kind of thinking. You know, respect your parents. And tough times, you know, he was sort of 14, 15, 16 during the war, World War II, and make do, you know, all that kind of that upbringing. And I think was brought up with that, and then that's been passed down to my kids. But there was this kind of transition, I think, after my dad, you know, the 10, 20, 30 years later, those people that grew up in that era have grown up with a different mindset around parenting, and then that's kind of been passed down at some level. Although you guys, you know, it sounds like you guys have been brought up in a home that respects this. Well, what about you, Maddie? You're a younger one, so how old's your mum and dad?
70, just turned 70, 71, around that, 69, 71.
Yeah.
So,
what are you noticing? Because, I mean, mate, you're one of the world's leading coaches for teenagers, I would say. And so you see a whole range of teenagers, from really functional teenagers to dysfunctional teenagers and young adults. What are you noticing? What are you picking up around kids that are turning up well-rounded and not well-rounded?
Yeah, I think the respect thing is massive. And what I notice, particularly at the summit, I used to notice this a lot, and Janesh and I would talk about it, is that kids don't learn from what you say, they learn from what you do. You know, model the behavior you want to see. And teachers sometimes, the ones that we would label as maybe not highly skilled, are unaware of this. And so they'll yell at kids, everyone sit down and be quiet, and you need to be respectful. And they're modeling the behavior they're getting, and they're completely unaware of it. Like, they're not teaching respect. They don't know the kid's name. They don't know anything about the kid. They have zero rapport, and they demand that the kid sit down, shut up, and listen. And that's not how teaching works. A teacher is meant to inspire curiosity in a student. And to do that, maybe start by knowing their fucking name. Who are they? Where do they come from? Something in their life other than, you know, your classroom. So, you know, there are kids that have real behavioural issues for sure. I think that half the time the problem comes from the parent or the teacher, the figure that's teaching them.
Where does the other half come from?
Well, the other half's on them, right? Is that we have. I think you have unique individuals, right? It's nature and nurture, but there's the molding and the shaping, which comes from how you discipline and how you communicate. And I think, I noticed that a lot of my, the connection's so important. If the connection's there, then you can communicate clearly. You can say to someone, dude, your behavior's appalling. Sort yourself out. And they care because they respect you. They're like, oh, I really like this guy. I don't want to disappoint him. I don't want to upset him. But if there's no respect and no rapport, then anything you say is white noise. It's like, whatever. And then you're just dealing with basic human needs, a need for connection that's unresourcefully met. So I'm so desperate for some attention and significance that I'll act out and have you hate me just so that I've got your attention. So, yeah, in my experience, and what I find works is, if I know them really well and I respect them. And as you said, old school, there's nothing wrong with disciplining and saying, you know, and pointing out flaws. That's super important. Having uncomfortable conversations, saying, dude, your behavior is unacceptable. And then I don't treat you. It's like justice, right? Justice is you serve your crime. You serve a punishment once. You don't get that held over you for the next 10 interactions. It's like, you make a mistake, this is unacceptable, and I think less of you for the way that you responded to that in this moment. And then I'm going to make that point, and it's really clear, and then I don't hold that over you the next time you step into my classroom or the next time I see you. That lesson's learned, and you've learned it, and I've communicated it, and that's it. And now I'm going to treat you how I want to see you behave moving forward until you give me another reason to call you out. And I think as well, you said there has to be balance. It's like, if I call you out all the time, I got to find something to love you for. I got to find something to commend you for as well, and say, good job. This is good. This is, this is shit. But if you can work on this and be more like this, man, that's someone I want to hang out with. I think it's a balance between positive and negative reinforcement, and definitely respect. What do you think, Janesh?
What do you think about the newspaper? Rolled up newspaper on the bum, slap on the back of the legs.
I've struggled with this because I grew up in that environment.
I grew up getting hit.
The wooden spoon. Oh, I had the wooden spoon. And then Mum switched to plastic because she broke the wooden spoon. She's going to hate me for saying this out loud. I hope I don't get her in trouble. She broke it over my brother's backside. I remember him, and he's turned around with the broken spoon. Go, what are you going to do now, Mum? She went out and bought a plastic one. But that was in the 80s. Early 90s. Probably legal then.
I can't remember actually getting physically disciplined at all. But Dad, it was his voice. And you just knew in the tone of voice that it was like something could happen. I never knew what. Like, I don't know what it could have been, but I didn't want to know what it was. So just, you pulled yourself into line. But you guys had got a spank on the bum.
Oh, mate. Yeah, plenty.
Yeah.
Plenty. But I haven't. I don't use the newspaper for my own children. I think there's not even an inkling that I've ever thought. And again, my kids are young, but ever thought I would need to use it. I think that, the tone of voice is enough.
Different with girls though, true? Like you got two wild boys running around fighting. Like my brother and I used to fight a lot. Like I remember getting thrown through a fly screen door and then coming back through the broken fly screen door. Like animals. And mum's by herself, dad's away. Like now I don't know how she did it. We were wild. But she did. Mum had this tone too, like you said. So dad was the quiet, kind one, which was actually more scary because we were used to mum yelling, and mum does this, Matthew, like it goes, and you just know. The moment I hear that, I'm like, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to work out how to blame this on him because I'm not being grounded for the next 2 weeks.
I think it's the same tone that I would use for the girls and for crew. And they all know. They're like...
Crew's the dog, listeners.
Yes. Yeah. And like he'll come bowing his head in like, oh, yeah, I know I'm in trouble. I'm like, did you... like? What happened to this bin? And then the girl's like, yeah. And I'm like...
It was him. It was her.
And it's funny now with Si, if I have that tone, I'll ask, what do you think I'm going to talk about? She goes, yeah, this, and this. Or some, like, was it a couple of weeks ago? She's like, I don't know. And I went, oh, okay, sure. So...
Your day?
Yeah, but I think there's negative reinforcement still you can do with without the physical part. I'm not sure if I talked about it on the last week or not, but a couple of weeks ago, Si was having a tough time, which is fine, and she doesn't listen actively, so she won't mind me saying this. She slammed the door in her room, and I'm like, oh, no, that's just no. Like, you can go to your room and you can have some space. And so I took the door off, and she's like, what are you doing? I go, you've just lost your privilege of having a door. I go, we don't slam doors in the house. I go, you can go to your room, that's fine, and close your door, or go to another space if you need space from mum and dad, but nope, you don't. And she's like, really? I go, yep. And then that night, like the corridor light was on or something. She goes, I can't go to sleep. I go, not my problem. That's a you problem. And yeah, it was off for a week. And then, but I know now it's going to either she's never going to do it again or it'll be a long time before she slams the door. The door's back on now, listeners. But
it's going to be so funny when you're an old man and you take yourself to your room. You're like, that's it. I'm going to bed. Boom. And your kids
come with the drills.
Mate, that's a lot. I got to say, that's a lot of effort. That takes some thought and control and, okay, I'm going to get my tools out. I'm going to unscrew the door.
Right. Because I knew if I went in...
He's an educator.
If I went in and cracked it verbally, it's probably not going to have a behaviour change. Make her super upset. There'll be tears and it just potentially won't lead to a change. There's not enough pain in like just a talking to. And I'm like, nah, I'm going. And it's a fucking heavy door. After I realised when I took it off, I was like, oh, this is heavy. Might need a hand.
It'll be hard to put back on. Easy to take off.
Yeah. No, she was part of the process. Like, and if you want it on, you're helping chuck this door up to put it back on. And then it just lived. And then it was like, where the fuck did you put this door? After it was off, I was like, where did I put this door? So it was in the garage for the week. So,
mate, big job. I think that works with Simon. It's not going to work with Zaid. Mate, you're going to need rolled up newspapers. You're going to need a subscription.
Mate, there will be bars on that door. And Zaid's going to be the wild child. It's maybe second child syndrome. All right, it's going to be yeah. She definitely walks to the beat of her own drum.
It's funny how that happens, that the older one, because my brother was the troublemaker, and generally, because obviously when you're the youngest, you look for patterns, right? So I've informally interviewed every youngest child to see, are there things happening? Like, is this just me and my family, or is this like, a pattern based on, being the youngest? And there's definitely a pattern that generally the youngest seems to be the more easy one, because they see their sibling go through life. They see the pain, the struggle. We're an observer, right? Like my brother was 3 years older. I always wanted to hang out with his friends, and he would be quite mean and go find your own friends. I'm like, I don't have any friends. So that's because you're a loser. And so I'd be watching him go through life and just learning, right? Like I could see when he did something wrong that caused him a lot of pain. And so, yeah, my life was a little bit easier because I had this thing to learn from. But with your kids, it's really funny that the oldest one is probably the one that's more easygoing, less challenging.
Rule follower.
Opinionated.
The oldest is the rule follower. The younger one is like, how do I bend the rules? I'm the younger one in my family, so I'm like, I can.
Were you like that?
100%. I was a little shit.
So this seems like maybe
I would start the fight, and then I would not get in trouble for it with my brother. I would start the fight, and then I would get wiped. I go, I need me, blah blah, and then he goes, oh no, he started. I go, I didn't do anything. Like 100%.
I would do that because that's all I had, right? I wasn't physically superior, so I would use Jedi mind tricks,
What did you find
warfare
in Ben, in either your own household as a kid and your kids? Like, so let's take your kid. Is there a designated rule follower, or is there one that goes, I'll bend the rules? Well, don't have to name names.
Yeah, but it's way more fun if you do, because one of them listens.
No, I don't think so.
Similar behaviour?
Yeah,
was there one
similar behaviour? I've got to say the kids were really good. We just really didn't have any major teenage thing happen.
But on day to day, right? Day to day now, who is there one guy? So if it says
Eden's the rule follower.
So if it says no parking, right? Would any of them go, okay, yep, I can't park there? Or will someone goes, you know what, I'm only going to be 5 minutes. I'm going to park there. I'm going to put my hazards on and go in and get my coffee, and I'll be right.
Our kids are
Who does that, Janesh?
Anti.
No one does that.
Our kids are all anti-convention. If there's a red, the red walking guy, our kids
they'll walk.
In fact, if it's the green guy,
they'll
our kids
stop.
will wait.
See, I like that.
Don't feed the seagulls. Yeah, we're feeding the seagulls. So
That's awesome.
So surely, like, I don't understand how this works, because when they were younger, you were the authority.
But Ben was feeding the seagulls too.
I was feeding the seagulls as well.
So Michelle's the one trying to keep all.
No, yeah, Michelle probably a little bit. She's a little bit more of a rule follower, but we're a little anti-establishment. We're a little bit, our kids were born at home. I remember Bella was. We put Bella in kinder, and the kindergarten said, something or other, like they checked up on her on Medicare or government website, and she didn't exist. It's because we hadn't registered the birth. Bella, she wasn't even registered. Yeah, that's kind of, I guess, sums it up. We're just a little anti-establishment.
Again, I know we're nearly end of time, but I got a question for you. Okay, how do you raise 3 kids through? They've all finished school, right? Like being anti-establishment and the school system very much being the establishment. How did you and Michelle reconcile that for your own, like, there's only this little say, right? There's like, end of the day, the Department of Education will do what they're going to do, and the school will do what they're going to do. You can jump and shout as much as you want, but it's not all going to change. So how did you guys reconcile that?
Well, I think that there's some rules that make sense. For example, there's a great movie. I think it could have been a TV. It was actually a TV series, and it was about the letterbox bomber. Have you seen that? It was in America. It was around our time. There was a guy putting bombs in letterboxes, and so it follows that story, and it follows. There's this scene where the investigator. There was one guy that was hot. He was determined to find out who this was, and it's a true story. It's a really good TV series, and he's driving home late at night, and he's driving through this town, and it's just still, and there's just this light sort of, that misty kind of late night, dark, cold morning, early morning, like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. He's driving home after having been at the office all night, and there's something in this letterbox bomber about being anti-establishment. He writes these kind of anti-conventional thinking, etc. And he's there, and all of a sudden the light turns red ahead, and he pulls up at the light. There's nobody. There's no cars. There's nothing. And he's sitting at the light in his car, and the light's red, and he goes, why am I sitting here following, this rule when there are no cars? Like, I can actually think for myself and go, there are no cars and I can drive through. And he goes, yeah, I'm going to think for myself. And he puts his foot on the accelerator and drives through the red light. Now, I'm not recommending that, listeners. But
these days.
But a lot of the time, we've got some, rules in place to look after those at the end of the bell curve, those that just don't have the common sense, that were just never nipped by their parent when they did the wrong thing and said, hey, like, that's not the behaviour that we want. And so we have all these rules in place, all these just like common sense. Well, they're not even common sense rules. They're rules that go beyond common sense to keep people safe from themselves. And it was a really good scene, and that scene, I must admit, has stuck with me. And yes, when I see the red walking guy and there's no cars, there is no way, listeners, I am waiting on the edge of that footpath for the green walking guy.
I wonder how many listeners have that that experience, because I had, when you talk about that, I have my own moment where I made that connection. I'm like, this is actually madness. Like,
but how do you reconcile when it is madness and you can't make the decision to walk, to drive? How do you reconcile in your head going, fuck, this is just the way it has to be, and I can't do anything about it?
Well, I'm glad when I come to a traffic light and it's red and, there's the other traffic light's green and all those cars are zipping by. I'm glad the traffic light told me to stop because all those other cars are coming along the road, and I'm glad when their light turns red and mine turns green, and it's, 100%, right? But when there's and I'm not suggesting that I would do this in my car. I never run a red light. But, when you've got the red walking guy and there's no cars, like I walk in the morning and run in the morning at 6 a.m. and there's often no cars. And if I was to stop at every red walking guy, I would be stopping more than I'd be running.
What if, say, let's take this walking and traffic light, but say, instead of just a traffic light, a fucking barricade goes up, right? And there's no cars. And you're like, I just can't do anything about this. And this is ridiculous. Say, and those walls say they're the establishment. But how do you go, all right, how do you either let go of that, or how do you go, all right, it is what it is, when it's like clearly it's a waste, or it's clearly just not logical or makes sense in that moment.
What do you reckon, Maddie? You have a think. I'm interested in your thoughts while I just Google a
well, it's just really, It's really funny that this is coming up because Kat and I are actually going through a world of pain at the moment for a red light camera. $600 fine. And Kat was in tears. I hope she doesn't mind me expressing this. She was in tears, really upset because she's trying to change it into my name. I was driving her to an appointment or something. And she missed the date to transfer it into her name. The system's cold, man. It's brutal. Like,
I shouldn't laugh.
and so this is fresh for us, right? Like, it's a $600 fine for crossing. Like, so we're in the city. I hate driving the city, and I get stuck at an intersection where I get forced, kind of have to go because the car behind me is just pushing me through, and I've gone through a red, right? But there's no difference between a guy who's in an intersection completing a turn going through a red and someone actually running a red and nearly potentially killing people. They're very different things, right? Yet the fine is the same.
You can contend it. You can go to court about it.
We've tried, and at the moment the contention is we missed the court date because she was going to transfer it into my name, and then I was going to go to court because I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the fines. They're just ridiculous. The amount, like, who decided $500 for a red light? Like that's a lot of money. And so I wanted to go to court, but we didn't transfer it over in time, and now she's stuck with this fine, which we're going to have to pay. And she sent this letter, email, and the response was automated. And so she sent another one, automated, no human. No way to really appeal. The automated email back is no, pay it or we're coming for your house, basically. And so this is fresh for us. And I find it really painful. Just, the amount of fear tactics and the amount of pain, physical pain and money that they'll take from someone for something that it isn't about safety. You know, I think there needs to be some way of dividing it up so that if, you do something that's unsafe that could be really dangerous, there is a fine that adequately conditions you to not do that versus you make a mistake. There has to be, we talked about justice earlier on in the piece with kids. And this is why I'm so triggered by this, that there's no justice in this. It's you're punishing people for something that's a mistake. With a kid, this is how we build rapport and trust and respect, is if I make a mistake, I own up to it. If I rule with an iron fist for every single thing, I lose respect. The kids end up going to rebel and they're going to end up trying to break me because I'm breaking them. Whereas if I rule with an iron fist and it turns out actually I'm wrong and I admit, I say, sorry guys, I shouldn't have done that. I get respect. It's a give and take. It's a ball. It's a game we play together. And the system isn't doing that because they have automated emails that just get thrown back. No, pay the fine. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have at the moment while we're losing trust and respect from citizens as far as an establishment, because there isn't this humanity in it. There isn't an ability to say, you can see that it was a mistake. You know what? Life's tough. $500 is a lot of money. Let's downsize that to a reasonable amount. Let's look at how much money you earn, percentage of your income. Okay, let's make this fine for this particular person, $50. Because the reality is if I'm a millionaire, the fine's $500. But if I'm a kid who's 20, who only makes $400 a week or $800 a week, $500 is going to potentially cause me mental health issues. It's too much.
Yeah, we've got intelligence but not humanity. Artificial intelligence, is generating this, but not the humanity. Mate, here's a quote for you, Matty, and this one is for you. The prayer of serenity, which I know you know. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that's a reflection to you, Janesh, around the walls that come up. Allow me to know the things that I can change and the courage to do that, to speak my truth, and the things I can't change, to let them go. And, over the last 3-4 years, we've all had that in different circumstances where we've just gone, this is just a battle that I'm not going to win, so I'm going to release to it. versus this is a battle that I can win, and I'm going to take it on and have the courage to stick to my convictions. So, yeah. Thoughts, gentlemen? I'm conscious of time.
That's a good one. I think my big one is to not be afraid of negative. I'm going to call it honest reinforcement for behaviour with connection. Because if you do it without connection, it's not going to work. To not be afraid of it, but if you are going to do it with connection and with love. Because otherwise you're going to get a tit-for-tat battle with whoever it is. Dog, employee, partner, student, whoever it is, right? That would be mine.
Maddie?
I wish we started the podcast with that quote and then went from there. Maybe we come back to that one because it's really wise. I think the humanity is really important, that we don't become robots, and I think that's going to be really important in the future with a huge number of robots and not being able to tell the difference. That's what makes us human, is an ability to connect, reason, and be compassionate. And when we are, and we see something from someone else's position and maybe change our perspective a little bit, and we give a little more than we take, then we get respect. And with respect comes trust, and with trust, you can have anything.
It's good. It's good,
All
boys.
right, fellas.
Well done.
That was a good one.
Excellent.
Well, lots of nuggets there, and lots of thought-provoking.
I tell you what, you lost me there for a bit. My computer just cut out. Did you guys see that happen?
No.
No, right.
Oh,
Matt's off at the fairies.
Yeah.
So till next time, everyone, have a good one.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Lifelong Learner. If you like this episode and want to know more and hear other episodes, head over to lifelonglearnerpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter, where you'll be the first to know when new podcast episodes come out. And if you want to say hello, tell us a joke, or ask us a question, send us an email at hello@lifelonglearnerpodcast.com. Thanks again.